Hey, it's Adrian, and today I'm taking a look at the KiiBoom Phantom 81 clear mechanical keyboard. Now, I've been eagerly awaiting this keyboard because of its really unique appearance, and it also looks like it has pretty premium build quality too. Now, KiiBoom has sent this unit out for review, but I'll be giving you my unbiased thoughts on it. So, let's get started. In the package, we have the KiiBoom Phantom 81 clear mechanical keyboard. We have an instruction manual, braided USB Type-C to Type-A cable. We have a switch puller, keycap puller, 2 additional switches, and a really generously sized cleaning cloth. The design of the keyboard is just really spectacular, and it's something you kind of have to see in person to really appreciate. Now, one thing I want to point out is that you can see when I'm holding it like this, you're seeing overhead glare from my lights. But when I angle it like this is kind of what you can expect, where the keycaps, everything is completely see-through. And speaking of, I'm just a huge fan of this type of design theme, the clear acrylic against this brass color. It just looks really elegant, really classy. I'm really happy that I picked this clear version. Although it does come in black and clear yellow, and the black did also look really nice from what I've seen as well. While you may think that this keyboard is a bit light because of the acrylic case, it actually comes in at 3.1 pounds or 1.4 kilograms. So here's a look at the keyboard without those overhead lights on, just so you can get a better idea of what it'll look like when you have it in hand. The volume knob is a metal build, and you can see that it has hard stops or increments. As well, it is knurled and it is textured so that you do have some gripability when you're rotating it, and it just feels really premium. If you're going to be buying a clear or see-through keyboard, or any product for that fact, there's not a lot of room for ugliness or sloppy build quality, because it's immediately apparent. And you can see that whenever I look at this keyboard from the front, from the rear, or from the bottom, even the sides, everything just looks really clean and really nicely put together. Sure, you can see, some screws dotted along the keyboard, part of the board here, but they're done in, little bits where it adds to the overall design, and, nothing is really an eyesore on here. So they've done an excellent job just, presenting this keyboard in the best possible light. There's a narrow gap right here, and you do have some indicator LEDs for Bluetooth, wireless connection, caps lock, and battery life. The rear of the keyboard has a Type-C port, and that could be used for charging or to put it in wired mode. We can also switch from Windows to Mac, and we also have a switch from switching it to Bluetooth, wired mode, or wireless mode. And this is just another level of detail where they could have skimmed on it and just left this entire portion clear, but they opted to go with, this brass type of look to really accent the keyboard. On the underside of the keyboard, we have this huge metal plate that spans almost the entire width. Now, we also have the KiiBoom logo, and the black areas are pressed down or debossed, leaving the KiiBoom logo raised or, at surface level, so you could run your fingers along there. And that's a level of detail that I'm happy that they went with, instead of just leaving everything kind of flat looking. And you can see the complete underside of the board here with the LED lights, and it just looks really clean. It's just a tasteful design overall. And we also have the wireless adapter for 2.4 gigahertz connection, and that's held magnetically in place. The underside of the keyboard also has some rubber feet just to keep everything from sliding. Now, you may be asking yourself, hey, where's the adjustable feet that you would find on a lot of other keyboards? And the reason that that is not present on this one is because you can see that the keys are actually angled up a bit. So the keyboard doesn't sit flat naturally. It is at a bit of an angle. Now, that can be good or bad for you. Whenever I type on most keyboards, I will use that adjustable feet. So having it naturally built in or angled up negates the need for me to have that. But, that's something to think about. Here's a close-up look of that custom crystal switch that comes with the KiiBoom Phantom 81. And that's it paired with the custom keycap for that seamless look. So I've removed one of the keycaps, and I just want to show that, when it's right up against the paper, it's easy to still read the underlying text, so that clarity of those keycaps is really excellent. Here's a side view of the keycaps, so you can see that they have a little bit of a scoop, and they kind of angle up as you go higher up the key rows. Now, in terms of the font, I'm really happy with the font style they chose. It's kind of like a soft, rounded type of font versus something sharp. And overall, I think it just goes really well with the overall design of this keyboard. So overall, I think this is a beautiful design. I mean, this looks just as good without the RGB on as it does with the RGB on, and that's what that looks like. So I think you could run this either way, RGB on or off, and it's still gonna look spectacular. But let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this design. You know, are you a fan of the clear? Are you a fan of the overall look? Or do you prefer one of the other colors like the black or clear yellow? All right, so when it comes to RGB, it's as great as you would expect it to be on a case that's pretty much clear without a lot of elements blocking the light. So you can see we have the RGB on the keycaps, which are south facing, of course, and they also have what they call a side light. So you can see that there's a blue ring of LEDs around the side, and these are independent of the keycaps and they can be modified. So let me go through that right now. So I'm going to leave the lights off for most of this, and I'll put the lights back on just so you can have an idea of how strong the light output is. To toggle through the sight light modes, you're going to use function and P, and you can see right now is this fading type of effect, and I can cycle through and you can see the different type of effects. I kind of really like this one where it follows along the frame of the keyboard. Now to modify any of these sight light features, what you do is hit function and you can hit X to increase the brightness, or you can hit Z to decrease the brightness. Now I'll just put it on the first level here, and you can see it's very minimal as it makes its way or tracks around, and then I can just increase it where it's, you know, fully lit. Now you can also change the speed of that, so function and C is going to bring that down to, you know, a really slow crawl, and then function and V is going to really, you know, speed it up. So basically this whole row at the bottom with function is what you would use to toggle most of the sight light settings. Now the last thing is function B, and that's just going to change the color of that side light. So you cycle through, you know, these kind of main colors, and then there is one mode with the rainbow colors as well. You can also hit function and backslash to cycle through the different modes. I'm a really big fan of this mode. You can see it's kind of like an afterglow, so whatever key you press, the light just nicely fades out of there. Now, if you're not happy with the rainbow color, you can also go with, you know, solid RGB colors. So you would hit function and right bracket, and you can see you can switch through the different colors until you get back to the rainbow mode. One thing I've noticed with the RGB is that whichever mode you're in, whenever you make changes to the brightness or the speed, it remembers that change. So as you cycle through different modes, if you want one mode to be faster or, you know, less dim than another mode, it does retain that. So you can see as I cycle through these, some of these are really fast, and then when I go to other modes, they're going to be really slow, and that's because it's retaining the settings per RGB mode. Right now I've put my top light on, and the RGB effect is on the lowest brightness level, and I'm going to just crank that to the highest. So even with this, you know, pretty powerful overhead light and a bunch of other lights in here, it still shows through, you know, really bright. So this as a keyboard, you're not really going to have any problems seeing the RGB in a bright environment. Here's a look at the RGB on the underside, and it's just really so neat to see everything on display. And you can see I have my favorite mode where the RGB just tracks along the entire frame. To turn off the RGB, you would just hit function and page up, and that cuts it off completely, and then function and page up again to turn it on. So let me know what you guys think. You know, are you a fan of the RGB, how it's been implemented on this keyboard, or do you think you would run it most of the time without the RGB? For me, I mean, it just looks equally amazing with or without, so I think it's just a beautiful keyboard all around with RGB or without. I've removed one of the keycaps, so you can see on the switch that it does have south-facing LEDs. So I've been enjoying the typing experience so far. The keycaps each have, you know, a little bit of a scoop, and they are very shiny and, you know, a little bit slippery, but I don't find my fingers actually slipping off, so that hasn't been an issue. As well, the print on the keycaps, it's really flush so you don't feel them when you run your fingers along. So it's a pretty seamless typing experience so far. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm someone who likes to use the adjustable feet on keyboards, and I always set it to the highest level. I like having that bit of angle or tilt on the keyboard. And since this keyboard is a bit on the higher end towards the top, it does have that natural angle or tilt. So there hasn't been a big transition period for me typing on here. That being said, if you're someone who likes, a really flat, low profile style of keyboard, this may not be the best option for you, or you'd have to look into getting like a wrist rest to place at the bottom to just elevate your hands. If you're planning on using the Phantom 81 for gaming, you're not going to have any issues. Now, I'm not the most practiced player, but I had no issues with, reaction time, latency, or anything like that. It was an awesome experience. The sound profile while typing is very pleasant to listen to, and it really will fit any type of environment, whether that's work or home, and it's not very invasive. So this is what it sounds like. So while the typing and sound performance is great overall, the spacebar is a little bit mismatched. As well, when I check the wobble on the spacebar, you can see here there's a little bit of play right there, which is also contributing to that type of sound. And when I do it on the backspace or the enter key, there's a little bit of play there, but it's not as much as on the spacebar. And when I'm typing, I'm not noticing any play on the keys. This is something you may be able to fix with adjusting the stabilizers, but just something to keep in mind. The keyboard does have a gasket mounted design, and that's supposed to help with the vibrations. And for the most part, it does. If you want to check the battery life, that's very easy to do. You can hit function and backspace, and I have about 80% of battery remaining. If you're someone who is going to be using the keyboard for gaming and you accidentally hit the Windows key all the time, it's very easy to disable that. You just hit function, Windows, and L, and you can see it's now lit up a different color, and that lets you know that it's been disabled, and function, Windows, L again re-enables it. The KiiBoom Phantom 81 mechanical keyboard has a 75% layout with 81 keys and a volume knob. Now these keycaps are KiiBoom's own custom designed crystal style keycaps to match the look of the keyboard, and they are PBD keycaps. Now this is hot swappable, and it does support 3 and 5 pin switches, but these come with KiiBoom's own linear style crystal switches, which are pre-lubed. LEDs are south facing, and there's 19 different color modes by default. It does support NKRO or anti-ghosting, and you do have 3 connection modes: wired, Bluetooth 5.0, and 2.4 GHz wireless with about a 1 millisecond of latency. There's a 4000 hour milliampere chargeable battery. It does support Windows and Mac. Now the size comes in at about 12.9 inches wide by 5.9 inches deep by 1.3 inches high at the highest end and about 0.8 inches at the lowest end. You can go ahead and switch between different profiles. Now you can also adjust key sensitivity if you like. And you can see if I click on one of the letters, P for example, I have some options here. I can also remap this letter if I like, and I can go to macro, media, and I also have some options under mouse. Now, for the volume wheel, if I click on the middle, it doesn't let me reprogram or remap that. So clicking the wheel down doesn't seem to be adjustable. However, if you wanted to adjust the right or left scroll, what you could do is you can set that to say increase the brightness, decrease the brightness, launch your computer, email, search, whatever you have. So those are the options on the main screen. If we go under lighting, there is an option here where you can change the direction of the LED effects, and this is so cool. The default was set to right, and I've played around with up and down, and it looks just so much better with up or down. I would download the software just for this functionality. Additionally, if you go to sleep, you can see that you can actually set the backlighting to never go off. You could set it to unlimited or 60 minutes as the maximum before it goes to sleep. Same for Bluetooth or wireless mode. Wired, obviously it doesn't matter. And then you can also set the sleep time for wireless or Bluetooth. So, if you're someone who hates coming to a keyboard that's sleeping, you can just set it a maximum to 60 minutes. There is no option for unlimited, but 60 minutes is pretty good. And you also have the option to go into macro, check the app for any updates or upgrade the firmware. I did try both of these and none were available. Under languages, you have English and I'm assuming Mandarin. I'm not sure what auto does if you live somewhere else, if it would automatically detect and adjust, but worst case, you'd have to pick English or Mandarin. So would I recommend the KiiBoom Phantom 81 mechanical keyboard? And I have reviewed a handful of other keyboards that are priced higher than this keyboard, and I have to say that the build quality is on par with those more expensive options. So at 160 US, I think this is an excellent keyboard. The appearance is top-notch, so is the build quality. I have to say that the standout feature on this keyboard really is the RGB implementation and the look, of course. So, you know, with pretty much no elements or no barriers to the RGB light output, you really see it in full glory, and it's not something, you know, I've experienced with any other type of keyboard before. It really is a wonderful use and implementation of RGB. While I was on the KiiBoom site, I only found the Phantom 81 mechanical keyboard. I did not find any other previous models. And if this really is their first shot or first implementation in a mechanical keyboard, they've done a wonderful job, and I can't wait to see what they come out with next. I'm going to leave a link down in the description to KiiBoom's official site. You could take a look at the other colors. I really like the look of the black model, and it was pretty hard for me to decide, you know, would I want the clear or the black, and I am really happy with the clear. It's awesome, wonderful. I'm just really intrigued as well by the look of the black one. So check the website out and see which you prefer, and, you know, let me know down in the comments below which you would have went with. And as always, if you found this video helpful, please consider liking and subscribing. It really does help me out a lot, guys, and I'll see you in the next one soon.